Start a small business. No need to work 40, 50 hours a week, slaving your life away. Obtain financial freedom, be your own boss, and create your own destiny. Moguls are the new superstars. The path to country club membership and a leased Mercedes-Benz is paved in gold as you take your business trips to Orlando or Vegas. Validation from your in-laws is just an LLC and Facebook business page away. At least, that's what they tell you anyways. Through social media, websites, and targeted ads, you're sold an image. Small business owners seem to walk on water. You'd think you're the last person on earth working a regular job with a regular boss. But there's trouble in paradise, and its name is in over your head. People start looking to start their own business, don't know what they don't know. But that's why we started our Small Business Confidential podcast, to share what we've learned from years of experience. There's not a lot of people in on this, so remember, dear podcast listeners, you heard it here first, off the record, on the QT, and very hush-hush.
All right, we were talking about observations, all three of you. What's your observations, both growing up and working in the company, about, you know, what the real deal is about having your own business? I want to shift slightly because we're getting into college. And I want to go around the horn here, starting with Travis, because of the three, you're the only one here who's gone all 4 years to college and actually graduated. So you have a degree. And then Brook, how long were you at OU?
13 months.
13 months. So you're about a year and a half?
Yeah.
Okay. And Amari, 0. So no debt, and you didn't have to waste your time. So,
Nope.
So let's talk about, starting with Travis, your peers when you were in school, when you were in college, or people that you talk to, you know, in your generation. What is their thoughts about starting their own businesses, working on their own?
So a lot of my friends that I talked to, no one was interested in starting their own business. A lot of them went to grad school right after college because I think they thought that would lead to a more high-profile job.
And did it? Anybody have a high-profile job that went to grad school?
Well, I don't want to say any names.
No, you don't have to.
I think no, but that was just for one person. I don't know what the status of other people are, to be honest.
Okay. Because I think this is one of the myths. I mean, we're talking about myths of small businesses, but there's a myth out there that if you keep going to school and get higher and higher degrees, that somehow you're going to have higher and higher success, a better job, making more money. And the reality is, rarely happens that way. If you want to have financial security plus, where you have financial independence, most studies show that you really have to have your own business. Other than that, you're going to be shopping your resume around with advanced degrees. But at the end of the day, you're basically going to be working for a company. You may grow into that company. You may get laid off. Company gets bought out. So, Brook, your thoughts on your peers, people starting their own business.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of people who've started their own business, besides some of the subcontractors that we work with, our plumbers, our electricians. I'm more familiarized with people in the blue collar kind of sector, but none of my peers, at least, from high school, I'm not really 100% sure what they're doing, to be honest. I do know that, one person that does come to mind is my future brother-in-law, who did go to Ohio State. He studied business, economics, and now he does have a pretty nice job doing what he studied in college. I think he's super smart, and he is pretty street smart. But everything I heard from him when he was a kid, it did kind of sound like me a little bit, where he was always, he would go up and down the street, he'd cut people's lawns, he'd wash people's cars. So he kind of always had that entrepreneurial instinct and drive.
That hustling gene.
Yeah, and honestly, I think in business, I mean, you could go to school, out the wazoo, business school, grad school, but if you don't kind of have that street smart, like you're kind of like a hustler, I don't think you're going to be that successful. A lot of business is being street smart and street savvy. Not saying that's everything, but that's definitely a big component, that kind of drive.
Well, I use the example of why America basketball has been so popular around the world. It's almost like soccer. I mean, you want to see great soccer players, Argentina, Brazil, in Europe. But, these people play in the streets. I mean, it's like pickup basketball in America. So when people talk about street smarts, and it goes to what I was saying the other day on our, I think, earlier podcast with Mike Ferrante, forget the AP courses in high school you want to get your MBA. You don't learn anything in terms of hustling, street smarts, making unusual connections, seeing opportunities that you don't get that if you get an MBA. All you're doing is solidifying your conventional thinking. That's what Mike Ferrante said earlier podcast. I think it's, if you want to add to a little bit of gloss to your resume, yeah, maybe an MBA, but, the cutting the grass, the hustling, the car wash, the recognizing opportunity, that's the street smart, like playing, pick up basketball, in the playground, or touch football, or that sort of thing. Your thoughts, Brook?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you always kind of have to have that drive, whether it's, in business, whether that's, your personal life, activities that you like to do outside of, the quote unquote 9 to 5. You can always kind of tell who has that instinct and that drive, to want more, and, who is in control of what they want to do. And I think, on the flip side, there's a lot of people I know who do not have that. They do not want to be like that. They do want to go to college, whether it's to be an accountant, a social worker, a lawyer, and be like, I don't want to be the boss. I want, a more kind of relaxed lifestyle where I'm not the one who has to try to find the work. I think that's, I don't have any hard feelings towards those people. But, it's all about recognizing, who you are, you, and what you ultimately want.
Well, one thing that I think there's a little bit of a myth about that, because the best way to interact, let's say you're working for a company, the best way to interact with your boss, or let's say you're working with a client who's a boss, is that you have more empathy if you know what it's like to be your own boss, even if it's like, working through college. I mean, I'm thinking of a very good friend of mine, Jeff W., who he and his brother, they worked there. They had summer jobs. They had a painting company, and they both went off and became lawyers. And Steve argued in front of the Supreme Court, and Jeff was a great lawyer with a firm that did working with partnerships. So, yeah, your thoughts, Amari, your friends.
Yeah, so I kind of separate my friends in two different groups of like people who I knew in high school, people who I knew past high school. In high school, I knew a lot of people who wanted to go to college just because that was what you're supposed to do. I think I knew literally one or two people who knew what they wanted to do. Only one of them went the college route. I mean, it was he was very unusual. he he already knew he wanted to get into software engineering. He got the Bill Gates Millennium Scholarship, got a full ride to his college, and he's to this day he works a really nice software engineering job. That was one out of so many people who went to college and it wasn't connected to anything. I only know it wasn't connected to anything based on where I see some of these people now, where they're still trying to figure it out. They were looking at me crazy for wanting to do music, and then I see these people trying to figure it out in either music or some creative field these days. So that was kind of my high school friend group. I had that one guy who, college was connected to what he wanted to do. And then I had another friend who he worked with his parents. So he got a lot of information about how to run your own business. And he applies that with music as I kind of apply my, education working with you, Mike. And just like Brook talks about, that street smart, that unconventional thinking and problem solving is crucial in business, is definitely crucial in the music business, just based on how strange and unusual and unpredictable it is.
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back.
If you enjoy listening to our Small Business Confidential podcast, we're sure you'll enjoy our first podcast, The Cleveland Real Estate Investor. We give outside investors an inside look into the real estate market in Cleveland. Cleveland has been on the rise, and investors from all over see those cheap prices and salivate. Our job is to educate those investors and steer them in the right direction with several years of experience of how to do it right and many examples of how to do it wrong. Find the Cleveland Real Estate Investor podcast on any app you listen to your podcast today.
The music business keeps changing. I mean, it's like anything. It's like you want to be a journalist. I mean, how many people do I know who worked at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, which is, the newspaper in town, 100-year-old newspaper. And, in the last 20 years, I mean, layoffs, downsizing, whatever, they're moving to print. There's still a need for the news. There's still a need for reporting the news. But that whole industry went through a titanic shift. So the music. So I think, let me just jump ahead of you, Amari. One thing that stands out about your friend was they went into college knowing what they wanted to do. And Brook, for your brother-in-law, it's the same thing. They already had kind of a hustler's mentality going in. So my thinking was they probably didn't have a super high GPA, 4.0, and I'm going to end this section with this famous story of mine. But my guess is, they went into college knowing what they wanted to get out of it. What's your thoughts, Amari?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, in high school, I remember seeing that guy in high school and be like, he's different for sure. I mean, highest test scores, just everything he was doing in high school was connected to getting the most out of it. Especially at Shaw High School in the hood, it had those kind of like, okay, these kids in the hood, we want to give them as many opportunities as we can, some of these different programs and stuff.
And he sees that opportunity, right?
As many of them as literally possible. That was always inspiring to me, and we're still in touch to this day. So,
Yeah.
but
Well,
like I
that's
said,
why
he was one out of like however
Well,
many
that's why
hundreds,
I
thousands.
wanted to go to college, was because I wanted to refine my craft as a fine artist. So I was really looking forward to just studying the things that I wanted to study.
and how'd that work out for you, Travis? Looking back, passage of time.
I mean, I thought it was great, like I said, just to study what I wanted to study. The practice now is just implementing that into my real life, which isn't easy. I'm still working on
Yeah,
that right now.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you, Trav. And you know, I didn't go to college to study music or anything, but I did have like mentorships at college. I did go to the music settlement and studied there for a couple years. And I realized, I mean, just as recently as last year, where what I really wanted when it came to music. And it was just like, I want to make literally the best music possible, which just was not immediately connected to having financial stability based on a career in music, you know. And as I learned more and more, it's like, oh, there's so many other factors in trying to have a, you know, being able to make a career in music, which, you know, it's relationships, it's availability, it's a lot of different things
It's
that have
but
really
you know, it's
nothing to do
budgeting.
with like how well I make music.
Right. It's budgeting your money, you know, the whole 9 yards. I mean, the cliche of the starving artist is, you know, there's a little bit of truth to that, but that could be applied to a lot of, you know, professions. You know, the photographer, the lawyer. I mean, how many unemployed lawyers out there? I mean, we had a guy working in our company, began with the letter K, and you know, he thought he was just going to graduate from good school, good law school. He thought he was going to walk into a job, and all of a sudden he walked into a dead end because there were more lawyers than there were jobs. So the economic realities can really smack you upside the head. So, Brooke, your final thoughts, because I'm going to end this section with an interesting story.
Well, I think my final thoughts are, you know, college isn't for everybody. I don't think college was for me, but you know, if I had to go back in time, I would have loved to study, you know, maybe business, accounting, because I found, you know, now in my early 30s that, you know, I do really like working with numbers. I like doing sales. So yeah, I think college isn't for everybody, but I'm also a believer that, you know, hey, if you do want to go to college, you know, if you have a general idea of what you want to do, I think there is no harm in doing that either. So that's my final thoughts.
Yeah. Let me add to that thought, which is you don't have to go 4 years in college. You don't have to get a degree. You don't have to graduate. You can go to webinars. You can go to seminars. You could go for community college, night school, whatever. I mean, it's all out there. The difference is when people say college isn't for everybody, you know, it really should unpack that a little bit. There's a lot there. The conventional route for college, you know, graduate, SAT scores, get into a good school, go 4 years. It's not that it's not for everybody, but the reality is it doesn't work for everybody. In fact, most people, it doesn't work out at all because you go into it with the assumption that if I get good grades, if I get a degree in this, I'm going to walk into a job. And that's not what happens. So, I mean, this podcast is devoted to the inside scoop, the QT, you know, the hush hush. But that's the reality. 50% of people who go into college drop out. And that's why you have these huge college loans because it's not working out the way they thought. Travis, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think kind of what I said before is if when I approached college as a way to elevate and improve my craft, that has been enriching for my life. And I would just encourage people who have been disillusioned by not getting the job they thought after working so hard in college is to rethink your mindset and give yourself a pat on the back that, you know, you did work hard at college. You did gain skills and you tried to elevate a certain skill that you were really passionate about. And I think those have merits in this world.
And you did learn something.
Yeah,
and
you
did
did
learn something. In fact, you learned a lot. But what you have to do is you have to disabuse and really sift through what exactly did I learn here? Because there is a kind of an assembly line quality in a lot of college experience where you're missing the boat on what you actually learned. And I think, Amari, your example is great. I mean, this friend of yours, he knew going in, like Travis, what he wanted to get out of college, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he knew going in. So when he saw it, he recognized it. There was a goal there. There was a strategy. When he saw the opportunities that college offered, and he went and got them. He didn't get sidetracked by the GPA, the 4.0, right?
Right. No.
And that's the key. If you want to start your own business, have your own business, make a lot of money, or at least have some financial security, which is what I wanted. That was my goal. Have a job in the summer. That's not this bullshit, work at some camp or, have a job that, you're washing cars, you're hustling, you're doing this. And then go into school and look at school as a buffet of different courses, astronomy, expose yourself to new stuff. But don't worry about the fact that there's going to be some job waiting for you. You're experimenting around. You may find yourself enjoying something you never thought about. That goes to what you were saying, Brook, which was, if I had told you when you were 17, I think you have you have what it takes to really be a controller, work with numbers. That's what you'd look at me like I was crazy.
To just add kind of one thing to what Travis was saying about, the college and give yourself a pat on the back, absolutely. Because, that's when I was realizing, okay, being super talented at music doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get more opportunities or make any money. That's a whole different place to explore and to figure out. It was still like, that's what I valued. That's what I cared about really the most. And so now it's
like
just like figuring out where to go from here. But also it's like, Travis uses a lot of those skills that he fine-tuned in college and beyond, helping out with Reilly Properties, Reilly Painting and Contracting, designing the artwork, helping with the websites, the photography, videography, always lending an eye, and just helping build a lot of the aesthetics with the company. So there will be a lot of different opportunities that you can take as an artist that might not be the exact, thing you saw in your head when you were first getting started out, but a lot of actual like real jobs you can get doing that. And especially with the internet these days, there's so many different places that, you can send things like visual art or do graphic design or music or things like that, where, you can really make a lot of money doing that. If that's what you want.
That's Brook. That is where your future brother-in-law's hustling quality pays off, because that's what you have to marry it to. Travis is just a brilliant artist and a brilliant actor too. Amari, brilliant with, music. People listening to this podcast, you're the one that came up with the music. here, and for the Cleveland Real Estate Investor. You did the music on that. So we don't have to worry about, copyright or getting blasted, from YouTube. But the hustling quality gives you the opportunity to marry what you like to do, what you're good at, to what the market wants. And, that's what people don't understand. You've got to have the ability to understand what the market is, and you have to be a professional about making money and to be able to be financially independent and not, be on the hook with your parents always supporting you. At the end of the day, you got to be able to stand up on your own 2 feet. So I'm going to end with this story, which happened about 25 years ago. And as Brook I used to, up until about 5 years ago, I used to play a lot of pickup basketball at Case Western Reserve University. And I started getting back to playing when I was probably in my early 40s, played up until my early 60s, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. So, maybe 65. So yeah, I played basically 25 years at Case. And I got to a point where I donated money for the golf outing sponsorship. They gave me an ID so I could get in and play, so I wasn't sneaking in. But I was changing in the faculty locker room. And the faculty locker room on a Friday afternoon, late spring, the finals were coming up. I overheard a conversation with 2 professors. And one guy was just complaining about his class, just so frustrated. And these guys were, they'd been teaching there a while. So it wasn't like they were just some new associate professors or teaching aides. And I came over to them because my daughter, Lindsay, was just about to start her first year in college. So this is like 15 years ago. And I introduced myself, and they knew me. They had heard my ads on the radio. In fact, I think one of the guys said, "Yeah, I think you guys did some work with us, 10 years ago." So we started talking. I said, what were you complaining about? And the guy said, "Well, I teach astronomy, and I heard that, I knew there was going to be a solar eclipse, around noontime or something like that, partial eclipse. And I told my class when I came in, hey, we're going to go out to the, and we're going to watch this." And they were all kind of complaining because it broke up the routine. They weren't prepared for it. And then they started asking them if this was going to be on the quiz or test. And the guy said, "Look, I just want to see this, all right? And I'm getting bombed about, is this going to affect my grade?" He was just so frustrated. So I asked them, I said, going back in your teaching career of 20 plus years, who were the most successful students you had? And what kind of grades did they get? And they both kind of thought, and they both smiled, and they both came up with the same answer. And the answer was this. They had a couple of students who became wildly successful, started their own businesses, and they said these people were exactly the same. They went into school. They didn't really care about the grade. If they had to take a course because that was required, they probably got a C+, what they call the gentleman's C. But if they were really, really interested and that connected, like you said, Amari, with your friend, if that connected to their agenda they got an A+. They got an A++. In fact, they were bombing them with questions. So the point is, when you want to set up your own business, you have to have a hustling component to it, and you have to look at gathering and acquiring knowledge like a shark going through the water. And we'll end on that note. Thanks, guys. And
Thanks, Mike.
We'll have another fun-filled podcast next week. All right, everybody.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for listening to the Small Business Confidential. To support, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also add our podcast to your favorite streaming services. Everything is appreciated, and we'll be back soon with another episode and upload schedule. The person voicing the intro's name is Travis Reilly. Thank you, Travis. And the music was done by our engineer, me, Amari.